As the bus rattled along the rain-slicked streets, its windows fogging up from the breath of tired passengers, a young man sat among them, 19-year-old Marcus. His headphones were firmly pressed against his ears, the music barely a shield against the storm of thoughts clouding his mind. He was heading to his evening shift at Les Monettes, an upscale French restaurant tucked in the heart of the city. The job was tough, yes, but it paid the bills, and for Marcus, that was all that mattered. His life felt like a balancing act, walking a tightrope between the weight of responsibility and the pull of his dreams. And today, like so many other days, he felt both pressing down on him, heavy and relentless. The bus lurched to a stop at a red light. Marcus's gaze drifted over the other passengers, and his eyes landed on a man and a little girl a few rows ahead. The man was tall, his frame draped in a loud, brightly colored suit that almost shimmered under the harsh fluorescent lights. Beside him sat a small black girl, no older than 7, her delicate frame swallowed by a faded, ill-fitting dress. Her head was lowered, her hands clutching tightly in her lap, and though she sat completely still, there was something about her, a sense of unease, a quiet distress, that Marcus couldn't shake off. The man, however, was different. He was restless, his eyes darting nervously back and forth, scanning not just the bus, but the world beyond the glass windows with a jittery intensity. His flamboyant attire and edgy, erratic demeanor stood out in stark contrast to the otherwise subdued atmosphere on the bus. Marcus frowned, a sense of curiosity gnawing at him. Something wasn't right about this pair. As the bus neared his stop, he glanced back at the girl. This time, she looked up, her wide, dark eyes locking with his in a brief, but intense moment of connection. And in that fleeting gaze, Marcus felt his stomach twist with something he couldn't name. Fear? Desperation? A silent cry for help? Before he could act, the girl quickly raised her hand to her neck and made a subtle choking gesture. It was almost imperceptible, but the instant Marcus saw it, a surge of alarm shot through him. His heart raced as the bus doors hissed open, and he stepped off into the cool evening air. The image of that terrified little girl burned into his mind. Later, Marcus arrived at Les Monettes, a world away from the gritty streets outside. Inside, the restaurant sparkled under crystal chandeliers, its tables pristine, covered with crisp white linens and gleaming silverware. Marcus moved through it all with practiced ease, but his mind was far from the elegant surroundings. The memory of the girl haunted him, her silent plea echoing in his thoughts. He tried to shake off the unease, focusing instead on his tasks, refilling glasses of water, delivering plates of coq au vin, smiling politely at the wealthy patrons. Yet, despite his best efforts, the girl's gesture lingered in his mind, like an itch he just couldn't scratch. And then, just as if summoned by his thoughts, the man and the girl walked into the restaurant. Marcus froze, nearly dropping his tray of empty glasses. The man was now dressed in an expensive-looking suit, his loud, garish outfit replaced with something much more fitting for the restaurant's upscale clientele. The girl, too, had undergone a transformation. Gone was the faded dress, replaced with a fresh, frilly outfit that still looked new, as if it had been bought for this occasion. But despite the change in appearance, the girl's demeanor hadn't shifted. She sat quietly, her eyes still downcast, her small hands gripping the edge of the table as though it was the only thing keeping her tethered to reality. As Marcus approached their table, he felt his unease grow. The man ordered with confidence, his voice smooth and practiced, but there was an edge to it, something that made Marcus's skin crawl. When the man pulled out a thick wad of cash to pay, Marcus couldn't help but notice how crisp and new the bills were. It was a small detail, but it added to the growing list of things that felt off. As Marcus served them their food, he caught the girl's eye again. This time, her fear was even more evident, almost unstable. She glanced at the man, who was distracted by something outside the window, then back at Marcus. Slowly, deliberately, she raised her hand to her neck and made the same choking gesture again. Marcus's breath caught in his throat. This wasn't a coincidence. The girl was in serious trouble, and she was silently begging for help. Marcus's mind raced as he retreated to the kitchen. He needed to do something, anything but how. The restaurant's manager, Mr. DuPont, was a stern man, notorious for dismissing anything that might disrupt the dining experience. Marcus knew that going to him with such a concern would be a risk. But what choice did he have? He quickly pulled aside his co-worker, Elena, and explained what he had seen. Her eyes widened in alarm as she listened. Together, they approached Mr. DuPont. The manager listened with a skeptical frown, his arms crossed over his chest. "You're overreacting, Marcus," he said, his tone dismissive. Mr. DuPont, arms crossed and face hardened, scoffed dismissively. "They're just customers. If the girl seems quiet, maybe she's just shy. We can't go around accusing people of wrongdoing just based on a hunch," he said. Marcus's frustration boiled over, his fists clenching tightly at his sides. "Sir, I'm telling you, something's not right. That girl is scared, and she's trying to tell us that she needs help." His voice cracked slightly as he spoke, a mix of anxiety and urgency flooding his tone. Mr. DuPont sighed, his patience wearing thin. "Even if you're right, we can't afford to cause a scene. This is a high-end establishment, Marcus. Our reputation is on the line. Drop it, Marcus. That's an order." But Marcus couldn't drop it. He couldn't turn a blind eye to the overwhelming feeling in his gut. The image of that girl's terrified eyes, pleading without words, was burned into his mind. He couldn't ignore it. As Marcus made his way back into the dining room, he noticed the man and the girl were getting ready to leave. Panic surged in his chest. If they walked out that door, he might never see them again, never get a chance to help. Without thinking, he slipped into the back hallway, pulled out his phone, and dialed 911. His voice was shaky, his words tumbling out in a rush as he described the situation to the dispatcher, giving the address of the restaurant and a description of the man and the girl. He clung to the hope that the police would arrive in time. When he returned to the dining room, the man and the girl were gone. Marcus's heart sank as he saw them climbing into a taxi outside. His hands trembled as he quickly scribbled down the taxi's license plate number on a napkin. Mr. DuPont's glare burned into his back, disapproval oozing from every inch of his expression. The police arrived minutes later, their presence creating a stir among the upscale patrons of the restaurant. Mr. DuPont's face turned red with fury as he stormed over to Marcus. "What the hell were you thinking?" he snapped. "You've embarrassed this establishment for what?" A wild guess. But Marcus didn't flinch. He stood firm, his voice steady despite the storm of emotions inside him. "I did what I thought was right. That girl needed help, and I couldn't just stand by and do nothing." The police took Marcus's statement and the license plate number he provided. They reassured him they would look into it. But Marcus couldn't shake the feeling of doubt gnawing at him. Had he overreacted? Had his imagination gotten the better of him? What if he was wrong? The next morning, Marcus's phone rang. It was Detective Ramirez, the officer who had responded to his call. "We found them," she said, her voice carrying a note of relief. "The girl and her mother, they were being held captive by the man you saw. His name is Victor Hayes, and he's got a long history of criminal activity. If it weren't for your quick thinking, Marcus, things could have ended very differently." Marcus's knees buckled as the detective explained how they had tracked down Victor and rescued the girl, Alicia, and her mother, who had been drugged and held against their will. The details were horrifying, but hearing that they were safe now filled him with a deep, overwhelming sense of relief. In the days that followed, Marcus became somewhat of a local hero. Alicia's family reached out to thank him, their gratitude overwhelming. As a token of their appreciation, they presented him with a check for $100,000, a life-changing sum that would allow Marcus to pursue his dreams of going to college and providing a better future for his family. The restaurant, inspired by Marcus's bravery, implemented new policies to ensure the safety and well-being of its patrons. Mr. DuPont, though initially resistant, eventually admitted he had been wrong to dismiss Marcus's concerns. "You did the right thing," he begrudgingly acknowledged. For Marcus, things would never be the same. He had faced danger head-on, trusting his instincts and doing what he believed was right. In doing so, he had saved 2 lives, found the courage to chase his own dreams, and gained the confidence to make a real difference in the world. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Black Voice Story. Let's reach 10,000 subscribers together and continue sharing stories that inspire change and celebrate resilience. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next chapter of empowerment.